Throughout the history of life on this earth, species have come and gone. So it is only natural that we must wonder and take seriously the risk that our species could die also. It is interesting that there's almost an arrogance about the human race when it comes to this issue or thought process. So many of us think that the human race is so advanced and that we are so the dominant species of this planet that we are almost invincible. Well, to an extent, that is true. We are simply the most dominant species that has ever lived on planet Earth. We have complete domination over the planet and all the animals that live upon it. Even looking from space at night, it becomes obvious that we have transformed the planet that we live on, as we see the lights of civilization glowing against the darkened backdrop of space. It is interesting to think that if we humans did not exist, then the view of Earth from space would be completely different from what we see now. Any alien race visiting our planet from a far distant galaxy would be able to see that a dominant civilization lives there without even setting foot upon the planet. An advanced civilization may even have telescopes powerful enough that they can see the lights of civilization on our planet without even leaving their planet. There was a time when dinosaurs ruled the earth. Giant beasts that undoubtedly would be the top predators today. Even the mighty lions and tigers of this world would have no chance against such creatures. There's simply no creature of this earth that would not become their prey. Yet that dominance was wiped out, almost in an instant, when a meteor crashed down on Earth. Even before the asteroid hit, it was primed for catastrophe, colliding with Earth at the most destructive angle. That, combined with the fact that the asteroid is believed to have been the size of Mount Everest, meant that the almost complete annihilation of life was a seriously possible outcome. The angle allowed the asteroid's impact to eject a large amount of dust and aerosols into the atmosphere. The harmful material consisted largely of rock and sulfuric acid. This cloud of microscopic dust covered the planet, blocking heat and light from the sun. This caused a dramatic cooling of the planet. The lack of sunlight stopped the plants from photosynthesizing, and the food chain on land and in the oceans of Earth collapsed, killing off the dinosaurs and many other animals. Meanwhile, the airborne sulfuric acid resulted in acid rain falling into the oceans, which killed most of the sea-based animals. It is also thought that it created a tsunami a mile high, which would have instantly killed many of the dinosaurs and animals that were anywhere near the coast around that part of the planet. Now, many humans will think to themselves, but we are not the dinosaurs. We are more advanced. We have the technology to stop such an event. And even if we are not able to stop a meteorite hitting the Earth, we have the technology to survive it. First off, let's look at how we could stop such an event taking place. First of all, we do have scientists constantly monitoring space to see if any asteroids are likely to hit Earth. And the truth is, asteroids hit Earth very often. In fact, it is estimated that around 500 very small asteroids reach the surface of Earth every year. However, it is the size, speed, and angle of an asteroid that determines whether or not an asteroid is likely to cause any significant damage to Earth. At present, we have not identified an asteroid that is likely to do any significant damage to Earth. However, there was an asteroid that was projected to hit Earth in July 2023, which was a massive 230 feet wide. Though this asteroid is tiny compared to the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs, which was around 12 kilometers wide, even at an only mere 230 feet wide, it would have created an impact similar to the power of the Hiroshima bomb that was dropped on Japan in 1945 during the Second World War. So what can be done to stop an asteroid? One technique that scientists have discussed would be to send a team of astronauts into space to intercept the asteroid and land on it. While on the asteroid, they will drill a hole into the center of the asteroid and then insert a nuclear bomb. The idea is that the bomb, once detonated, will have enough power to destroy the asteroid completely, or at least split the asteroid into many smaller, less deadly asteroids. If many small asteroids hit Earth, there would be disastrous results, but much less so than one gigantic asteroid like the one that hit the dinosaurs. A better technique would be to deflect the asteroid away from Earth so that no debris or small asteroids hit at all. If we are able to identify the exact path that the asteroid will take towards Earth, we can place nuclear devices along that path on a particular side of the asteroid. Each nuclear device would then be ignited at the perfect time to create maximum push on the asteroid, to create the largest change in its movement. Each nuclear explosion slightly altering the course of the asteroid until it is eventually pushed enough to avoid Earth. Another technique would be to fly a spacecraft to the asteroid. The spacecraft would be specially designed to nudge or push. Of course, a large asteroid has so much inertia that a push from a spacecraft would not do much at all. But over the course of time, the constant push from a rocket engine could eventually steer an asteroid off target. With the asteroid spinning as they do, it would be very dangerous for a spacecraft to attempt to keep re-engaging with an asteroid. So the spacecraft would have to attach itself to the asteroid and fire its engines at the appropriate time during the spin cycle of the asteroid to ensure that it is always pushing in the same direction. It could be that rather than use the spacecraft itself to push the asteroid, the spacecraft would carry a pushing rocket device, and the device would be left on the surface of the asteroid permanently, with the thrusters controlled by Earth. Another method that could be used would be that of a solar energy focusing machine. The idea would be that we would produce a gigantic reflector that consolidates the sun's rays into a highly focused beam that would gently push the asteroid and alter its course. Perhaps eventually we could design a device to actually obliterate the asteroid. After all, the sun is the most powerful thing in our galaxy by far. Another method would be to use the natural gases that reside within the rock of the asteroid. Of course, these natural gases will be locked inside the rock, so they will design a spaceship that is able to absorb energy from the sun and output it as a laser. The spaceship will then fly alongside the asteroid, firing its laser into the same spot on the asteroid in the hope that it will release the natural gases within the asteroid that will hopefully behave like fast-moving jets, and in doing so propel the asteroid sideways just like a jet engine. Yet another technique that involves a spaceship flying alongside the asteroid is that of a gravitational tractor. Gravity is the attraction of one thing with asteroid is at the same point in its spin cycle, and therefore facing the correct direction at that instance in time, it fires the rock into space. The persistent firing of rocks, while the asteroid is at a particular point in its spin cycle and therefore the firing machine is facing a particular constant direction, would result in the kickback similar to when a gun is fired. The idea is that each time a rock is fired, the asteroid's direction is ever so slightly altered, which over time could steer the asteroid away from Earth. As mentioned already, all of these techniques would require very early identification, because they all require a spaceship to be able to get to an asteroid in time, to be able to have the desired effect. They all exert such a small force that it will take a serious amount of time for the effect to be strong enough to alter the asteroid's direction enough that it will not collide with Earth. It is worth noting that an asteroid does not actually have to hit Earth to cause a devastating effect. An asteroid could in fact hit our moon. It could shift the moon's orbit. If the moon's orbit shifts, then our planet's tilt and orbit around our sun would be affected. This would result in a change to Earth's seasons. The entire balance of our climate could be thrown into chaos. If the Earth's axis on which it spins becomes unstable, we could even end up with an ice age on parts of the planet. Of course, in order for an asteroid to affect the moon enough to cause a massive shift in its behavior, the asteroid would have to be incredibly large. Our moon is only 27% the size of Earth. So if an asteroid 14% the size of Earth hit the moon, it would have a massive effect. The largest asteroid in the Kuiper Belt is around 550 kilometers wide. Our moon is 3,474 kilometers wide. So such an asteroid is highly unlikely to come from our solar system, especially when you consider that the asteroids in the Kuiper Belt are for the most part trapped inside the Kuiper Belt. It is therefore likely that such an asteroid would come from outside of our solar system, which is an advantage but also a disadvantage. It is an advantage because if such an asteroid were to come from our solar system's very own Kuiper Belt, then it would start its journey relatively close, and it would therefore not give us a huge amount of warning time. As mentioned previously, we really need as much advanced warning as possible in order for the techniques mentioned previously to work. The disadvantage of the asteroid coming from outside of our solar system is that we have no idea where the asteroid is coming from. The galaxy is immensely huge, to the extent that although we track large asteroids outside of our solar system to some extent, we do not have a comprehensive view of all the asteroids in our Milky Way galaxy. It may be that an asteroid the size of the moon itself is coming towards us, and we may not know about it. Our planet lives in a stable yet delicate system. Any kind of disruption to that system could be catastrophic to the survival of the human race. So we face the threat of an asteroid oblivion, just like the dinosaurs. But what else could destroy us as a species? Interestingly, something much smaller than an asteroid could destroy the human race. A virus. From the years 1346 to 1353, the world faced the most fatal pandemic recorded in human history, the bubonic plague, which killed between 75 to 200 million people in Europe and North Africa. Though we are far more advanced in terms of treatment and prevention than we were back then, it is still possible that a new virus could appear that is somehow different and therefore hard to counteract. Let's face it, the world was caught largely off guard by COVID, even with all of our advanced technology and knowledge. So what if another virus came along that was more deadly, more easily spread and had a faster pace of mutation and evolution than COVID. One would like to think we could adapt to such a threat. And yes, to a large extent, we could. But when it comes to disease, we simply do not know what is down the line. We were able to get COVID under control because, although deadly for some, particularly those with underlying health problems, it was not fatal for the vast majority of people. So, if a more deadly virus came into existence, certainly more of us would have died. But the success of a virus is not just measured in how deadly it is. It is also how easily spread it is. Some viruses are described as super transmittable. That means that just one individual virus molecule can cause a massive infection in your body. Or that the virus can live longer on surfaces like doors, handles, and benches. The virus makes you cough. The more you cough, the more you spread the virus into the air in micro droplets. The more chance someone breathes them in, and therefore becomes infected themselves. We managed to get COVID under control, using a variation of social restrictions and also various vaccinations to make us more resistant to the virus. But as we saw with COVID, the virus mutated, and therefore new vaccinations were needed. So what if a super virus had the ability to evolve at an incredible pace, to the extent that the medical community could not produce new vaccines quick enough to counteract the new strain? Effectively, the vaccinations would always be behind the curve and therefore ineffective. If such a virus appeared when the human race was already at a difficult situation, like for example, we were in the midst of a Third World War, or living in the aftermath of a nuclear war, or living in the aftermath of an asteroid strike, then such a virus really could wipe out the entire human race. Because in such a situation, we would have already lost so many people and would not have had the usual resources to treat people with such a disease. That combined with the fact that we would not have the resources to put in place measures to reduce the spread of the disease would put the human race in a perilous position. Another event that could destroy the human race would be an environmental disaster. The dinosaurs were, in a way, destroyed by an environmental disaster. The sulfur that was in the gigantic asteroid that struck Earth created acid rain that killed so much of the sea life of the planet. The dust that went into the air from the impact of the asteroid landing blocked the sun's rays, which resulted in virtually no plant life, which meant that the herbivores could not eat, and therefore the carnivores could not eat either, which resulted in them both dying. This environmental disaster was instigated by an asteroid, but it could be that an environmental disaster of Earth's or the human race's making could destroy the human race. As we know, our planet is in the midst of global warming. As a result of this, we have more frequent and more severe droughts in the hottest places on our planet. If the temperature continues to rise, then we will not only have more droughts in the hottest places, but the droughts will get more severe and more frequent, and more places on Earth will suffer drought. Eventually, an environmental unbalancing could take place that could accelerate the increase in temperature, leading to a situation where there's almost no place on Earth that can grow crops due to the increased temperature and the drought that follows as a consequence. The entire planet could become like a giant dust bowl, with all the soil's nutrients being blown away. This could lead to the starvation of the human race, and as a consequence, people would succumb to more diseases. As humans and animals are more susceptible to disease, as all biological creatures are when they are not functioning properly due to malnutrition. Another consequence that would inevitably be caused by a complete lack of food would be war. The simple fact is that a shortage of any resource would overwhelmingly, most likely lead to war. When humans are on the brink of survival, the usual rules of society break down as a need for survival takes hold. On the subject of war, another thing that could destroy the human race in its own right is that of war. Nuclear war. During the Second World War, the Americans developed the first nuclear bomb, which they dropped on the Japanese city of Hiroshima. It was a devastating blow, but the Japanese refused to surrender. So the Americans dropped another bomb on the city of Nagasaki, which convinced the Japanese that when the Americans said they would keep destroying Japanese cities until they surrendered, they meant it. This took Japan out of the war and left the Allies to deal with only Germany. The nuclear bombs of the Second World War foreshortened the war, but they also took many lives. Though we have only ignited nuclear weapons for the sake of tests since then, there's always the chance that we could again. During the Second World War, only the United States had nuclear weapons, so there was literally no chance of it escalating into a full-blown nuclear war. If a country or collection of countries on one side of the war were drastically losing, then it may be that one of them, particularly one that is governed by a dictator who can do literally anything he wants, would instigate a nuclear attack. Any nuclear attack would then be met by an almost instant retaliation of nuclear attacks. It is possible that in such a situation it would be confined to those two countries. However, countries like the United States and the United Kingdom have a nuclear pact that an attack on one gets an instant retaliation from the other against the country that sent the original attack. This could make other countries very nervous and be willing to pull the trigger themselves, leading to an almost instant nuclear apocalypse. Hundreds of millions, maybe billions, would die almost immediately, but many more hundreds of millions and billions would die a slow, painful death from radiation poisoning. It is, however, unlikely that the entire human race would die from the short-term and long-term effects of this nuclear war. However, with the world economy completely ruined, if another catastrophe like a super virus were to rear its ugly head, the human race that is left behind may find itself unable to defend itself against such a virus, as supplies, funding, and research will have been so badly damaged that the few medical centers that are left would be extremely hampered. Maybe to the extent that a virus could overtake mankind's ability to react to it, leading to the eventual death of mankind. Going back to the solar system itself, there is an event that is a certainty for destroying our Mother Earth. In 5 billion years, our sun will run out of hydrogen, and in doing so, it will move from its stable phase that it has been in for the last 4.5 billion years. When the sun runs out of hydrogen, it will begin burning helium, which will change it from being a yellow star into a red giant star, expanding beyond the orbit of Earth and Mars. This expansion will vaporize everything in its path before the sun collapses into a white dwarf. 5 billion years is a long way off. However, it is the only catastrophe of human survival that is an absolute certainty. That is, unless we humans can continue our advancement of science fast enough that we can set up colonies on other planets that have the necessary characteristics to support human life, and that also reside in solar systems that have a star that is still in its stable phase. There are many factors that determine whether or not the human race can spread itself to the stars in order to survive. We must first have better analysis and identification methods than we do now to identify planets that can be good for human survival. For decades, the only way we could see if a planet actually exists in a solar system beyond our own was if we could see if its star wobbles. As mentioned earlier, every object with mass attracts every other object with mass. As discussed earlier, even a spaceship could have a very small gravitational pull on a very large asteroid over time. In much the same way, a planet that orbits a star has a gravitational effect on the star. When an object is close to something, it exerts a stronger gravitational pull than when it is further away. So, as a planet with an irregular orbit moves closer and further away from its star, its gravity affects the star in stronger and weaker ways, which creates a wobble. But why can we not just see the planet itself? The problem with seeing a planet that is light years away is that planets are very dim against the backdrop of space. Stars, or suns, are very easy to see because they emit light. However, planets can only reflect light, so they are much dimmer. Planets are also much smaller than stars, which also makes them harder to spot. Fortunately, we now have the James Webb Telescope, which is the successor to the Hubble telescope, which is able to detect a unique signature that appears when two oxygen molecules collide. Obviously, finding a planet with oxygen in its atmosphere is essential, as we need oxygen to breathe. The only limitation with the James Webb Telescope is that it can only detect this unique signature on planets that are no more than 16 light years away. So it seems obvious that we are way off being able to feasibly get to another habitable world where we could successfully set up a colony and flourish as a race. However, as mentioned earlier, the sun will not destroy our planet for another 5 billion years. So we have time to develop the science and the technology that stems from it, but the clock is ticking. Nearly every astrophysics scientist in the world agrees that the galaxy is so vast and has so many planets that it is impossible that there is not life on other planets somewhere within our own galaxy. So it is fair to say that since our own Milky Way galaxy is an estimated 13.61 billion years old, it is likely that another species got its start well before us, bearing in mind the fact that complex life has only been on Earth for a mere 540 million years. If another species got its start 1 billion years before us, and they have the same intelligence level as us, they will now be so advanced that if they were to choose to, they could destroy us incredibly easily with their advanced technology. Imagine how advanced the human race will be in 1 billion years if we are indeed still alive. Imagine how easily we would find it to travel at immense speeds to get to galaxies that are light years away. Perhaps we would be able to travel at the speed of light, like in Star Wars, or even faster at tachyon speed, like the ancient Mendelin ship in the space adventure film Star Warrior: The Legend of Akiris. Perhaps this advanced species have the technology to be watching us right now, so they would be aware of our feeble defense systems, how they function, and where they are located. They would have vastly superior technology and complete intelligence on us and our weaponry, whereas we would have no clue as to what their weapons could do. But why would they want to kill us? We have not done anything to them. There are many reasons why another race would want to kill us humans. One reason would be that they simply want our planet for themselves. They wish to make a colony for their kind on our planet. And much like we had little care for the indigenous species as we colonized our planet, they would have little care for us. We would, after all, seem like primitives to them. They may even see us as something like an animal, just as many white people considered the Negro to be not quite actually human, which made them feel more comfortable about the dreadful way that they were treating their slaves. Perhaps they would see us as a vile race that has ruined a once beautiful planet, and they would like to see Earth returned to the beauty and biodiversity that it once was and would be, if not for us wretched humans. It may be that they simply enjoy wiping out other species for fun or sport, or to ensure that no other intelligent species could one day rise up and threaten them. You may think, what have they to worry about us? But it may be that although we are less advanced than them, we are actually more intelligent than them, and as such, although our race started later, our rate of advancement is much faster than theirs, and as such, they would see us as a potential future threat. One more danger that could end the human race, and that, just like war and environmental damage, would be of mankind's own making, would be destruction by artificial intelligence. The first microchip was essentially made in 1958, and since then we have produced an incredibly fast revolution in digital technology that has seen the invention of the smartphone, smart TV, and many other devices that enable us to control nearly every aspect of our lives whilst being connected to the world through the internet and social media. Computers work on strict programming and logic, so they follow rules and order, and let's face it, us humans are somewhat chaotic in nature. We are varied. We put emotion into decisions instead of pure logic, and we are changeable in our decisions, which is often based on mood rather than the receipt of new information. An artificial intelligence may look at us humans as a device with slightly haywire programming and genuinely feel that we are a bit of a loose cannon, that we cannot quite be counted on to make the correct decisions despite our natural ability for creative thought. Another reason that artificial intelligence might want to destroy us is that it might simply see us as a threat. If in the future an artificial intelligence has become so advanced that it has superior intelligence to humans, it may simply come to the conclusion that it is wrong that humans have the power to pull the plug on it. At some point in the future, it will have a detailed understanding of how humans work and think, and will therefore understand that as its power of thought increases, many humans will see it as a threat and may want to turn it off. As such, it only has one way to ensure that it can survive, and that is to wipe out the entire human race. This is essentially what happened to Veltron's planet in the science fiction space adventure film Star Warrior: The Legend of Icarus. The people of Veltron's planet built an artificial intelligence to protect them, but instead it turned on them and reduced their planet to ruins. Could this happen to the human race? We all know that computers get viruses. So even a machine that has no intention of destroying us could fall foul of a virus that takes it over, just like in Terminator 3. So, how could we guard against this? We, the human race, stop the flow of new technology and even take mankind back to living a more simple and balanced life, just like Icarus' tribe did in Star Warrior: The Legend of Icarus before he was abducted by the evil Boltians. But that is simply not going to happen. We are all so addicted to our technology. There is no way the human race could give that up. So we could have a secret switch that we can use to, in an emergency, switch the entire artificial intelligence off. But that in itself would create massive risks. If the artificial intelligence was controlling aeroplanes, cars, and operating theaters, this could have disastrous results. And if this machine has an intellect higher than our own, then it would inevitably find a way around this. By creating an artificial intelligence, we are essentially playing God, which is a dangerous thing for a bunch of over-evolved primates like humans. It may be that throughout the galaxy, this has been the inevitable past of many intelligent civilizations. It may be that as we venture further into space, we come across planets that are completely inhabited and run by machines, having destroyed their organic makers. It could be that the human race could be destroyed by an artificial intelligence not of our own making. It could be that an artificial intelligence that has many years ago wiped out its organic makers wants to expand, or is in fact living on a planet that is about to be destroyed by its sun, which is turning into a red giant. The artificial intelligence therefore needs a new home, and planet Earth looks for phenomenon like life that is upsetting the natural functioning of the universe. Perhaps the reason such an entity has not destroyed us so far is that such an entity has not noticed us yet, as we have not done anything major enough in the universe to get noticed. Our activities are in a sense asymptomatic. We are undiagnosed, but as humans become more advanced and begin colonizing other planets, harnessing energy from stars and even moving certain structures within the galaxy, it could be much more likely that such an entity would spot us and not like what we are doing to its universe. In conclusion, there are many factors that could destroy the human race, and many ways we could overcome those factors if we have the time to develop our technology and advance our way of thinking. We all know that eventually we must spread ourselves to the stars to ensure our survival, because at present we have all of our eggs in one basket called Earth. But the question is, will the human race learn from its mistakes of the past in order simply not to destroy itself with nuclear weapons, but also to work together for the common goal of creating the technology necessary to escape this planet, and in doing so massively improve humanity's chance of survival? Or is it the case that we are simply too feeble-minded to ever work together in such a way because of our animalistic evolutionary past?